art meditation teacher, and these sketchbook grids with neurographic inspired lines are one of my go-to exercises. So I wanted to compile some of my recent sketchbook grids and talk you through why I love these, what tools you need, and maybe some of the meditative benefits of these exercises. When you start by coloring your grid first, and they can be solid colors as shown in this first example here, or you'll see some examples later on in this video where I do flowy scribbles and it's a little bit more chaotic. But either way, when you color, it is a very grounding meditative practice. Coloring is therapeutic. It can drop you into a flow state pretty quickly. Coloring helps to quiet your mind, quiet racing thoughts, get out of the past and the future. And I mean in your mind, how often do you spend time ruminating about the past or living in anxiety or worry about the future, right? So it gets you out of that state and into the present moment. You are here and now while you color. So that coloring part of the process is a great way to slow down and focus and drop into that initial flow state. Okay, then I will add neurographic inspired lines on top of my grid. Sometimes I peel off the tape before I draw, sometimes I peel off the tape after. That part doesn't really matter, that's just more of an exploration of the process. But anyway, drawing the flowy lines over your grid that you've colored keeps you in a meditative flow state. Neurographica helps to release emotions. So it might be that you're releasing physical tension and also releasing difficult emotions. And I do want to be careful when I talk about some of the benefits of art meditation, because to clarify, these aren't necessarily the expectation of what is going to happen every single time. So these are examples of what you might experience during these different techniques. But certainly drawing the lines, and then when you round out the corners, if you choose to do that in your sketchbook grid exercise, is really relaxing. It's cathartic, it's therapeutic, and it keeps you in that meditative flow state. Now, sometimes I might just outline the borders of my grids and add more chaotic scribbles. That's also a great way to release tension. So it's not that I'm doing the neurographic style every single time I do a sketchbook grid, but it's one of my more common practices, and you can make adjustments to make the exercise work for you. I want to tell you from experience, as someone who deals with anxious thoughts and worries about a lot of things, there's a reason why this practice resonates with me so deeply. So I also identify as an artist. I have been making art my entire life. I am a certified meditation teacher as well. So what I've done is combined the two to bring, art meditation to the world. But let me go back to the being an artist, creative expression. Sometimes when I'm having anxious thoughts, it's really hard for me to slow down and sit and do my quote traditional meditation. Now, I still do that practice pretty much every day, and I do my art meditation because this really is a fail-safe way for me to get present, focus on what's happening on the paper, and get out of those ruminating, anxious thoughts. And I think that there's something so wonderful about creating while you do that. And often these end up looking good or cool or satisfying, right? But I also like to talk about, embrace making ugly art. Let this be about the process, not about the outcome. We are process over product here. You can experiment with different techniques. I tend to find something that works really well and stick with it, but then I might make variations on the technique. So that's exactly what you're seeing in this video with the 10 different examples of sketchbook grids. Supplies. I usually color with tempera paint sticks. You can use crayons, pencils, watercolors. Pretty much any coloring medium is going to work for the coloring part of the process. When I doodle on top of my tempera paint sticks, I'm typically using acrylic markers. I will list all my supplies in the description, but you can use other kinds of markers and ink pens. So just make sure that the coloring medium that you are using, that they can be used with other mediums on top. So I don't want you to try to draw with, for example, acrylic markers on top of oil pastels, right? So just make sure that you're not going to ruin your markers or whatever doodling tool you're using with the coloring tool that you chose. I like tempera paint sticks because they're extremely creamy. It's satisfying to color with these. They dry very quickly. If you have a single layer of tempera paint stick, they dry in less than a minute. If you have a few layers, it can take, 3 to 5 minutes. I'm typically using watercolor paper for these exercises, maybe heavyweight mixed media, but you want your paper heavyweight enough that it's not going to warp under the layers of tempera paint and acrylic markers. For taping off the grid, I use low-tack artist tape or washi tape. Low tack just means it uses a gentler adhesive, so it's less sticky, you can peel it off more easily. And really, I guess to kind of close this video out, I want to remind you that this is a meditative practice. We are here for relief and connection through creative expression. This can be simple. Enjoy yourself. Don't take this practice too seriously, but do take your self-care seriously, right? But ultimately, I believe life is strange and it's short. We have the ability to create. We have the ability to meditate, to be aware of what's happening around us. We have the ability to be conscious of our thoughts and to intentionally choose what we focus on. And through art meditation, I'm able to train myself and get into the habit of intentional thought, conscious awareness, and ultimately my nervous system just feels better. I hope this inspired you and gave you some ideas for sketchbook grids you can make. As always, thank you for joining me.